Hello everybody, welcome back to another 10 underrated Commander cards video. I'm Commander Void, I am back again. It's been quite some time since I did my last underrated Commander cards video, so unfortunately I haven't had a lot of time to play with the newer stuff, but there's always some older cards that maybe flew under the radar from previous sets that maybe some people didn't notice. Well, maybe some people didn't think they were quite as good as they could be. So really the point of these videos is to just share my own personal opinions and why I think they're actually really good. Also, I would like to remind you, if you want to support the channel, my affiliate link to TCG Player will be in the description. Any purchases you make on that website will go towards helping out the channel. Thank you all for your support. So let's start it off here with the very first card, and that is Crashing Drawbridge. The Drawbridge is a 2-mana artifact creature wall, 0/4 with Defender, so it already has the potential to synergize the whole wall strategy and defenders. I mean, it's becoming a bit more common, but that's not the reason why I like it. It has a tap ability: creatures you control gain haste until end of turn, which is just ridiculous. Yes, it's on a creature that could easily be removed with creature or artifact removal, but considering how cheap it is, and how similarly sized creatures usually can just give haste to 1, for the mana that you pay for it and the flexibility that it could go into just about any deck, I think it really is worth it if you're going for more of a Voltron deck, or if you're just playing an aggressive strategy in general. You have a pretty fantastic haste enabler. The next card is Tome of the Guild Pact. A 5-mana artifact. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, draw a card, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Now obviously the first part is where you're really getting the value out of this card. You're still able to add a mana of any color too. This could be a very solid card draw engine, and what I think is a pretty underrated strategy as a whole. Having a strategy that focuses on multicolored spells is surprisingly powerful. Not to mention, if you are constantly rewarded for playing those spells by drawing more cards, it means you have an engine here. I wouldn't say there's a lot of combo potential here, but you are drawing cards for playing your spells, which is always a good thing, in addition to having a mana rock. If you are playing more of a creature-heavy deck, in decks like Boros, this could be necessary. If you don't have a lot of card draw, this could be a way that you get that card draw, while also keeping your foot on the pedal. The next card is one that's been around for quite a while, but I still think a lot of people avoid it for some reason, and that is Spine of Ishsaw. It is a 7-mana artifact with an ETB that when it enters the battlefield, you destroy a target permanent. So right there, it is basically the non-creature version of Meteor Golem. However, it's better because when it is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you return it to its owner's hand instead, meaning that it has some deadly combo potential if you use things like Krark Clan Ironworks, or just anything that can reward you for sacrificing artifacts. That's usually the best one. Replay it, sacrifice it, bring it back to your hand, replay it again, which is something just so ridiculous, and in colorless you do need some removal. I've always sided alongside Spine of Ishsaw over just playing colorless instant and sorceries that remove, just because it's so much fun to get it back and replay it. It's also fun if you like turning your artifacts into creatures, such as with the commander option Sidri Galvanic Genius. A 7/7 creature that you can give Death Touch and Lifelink is pretty cool. One of my all-time favorite artifacts. At number 4, we have Angelic Exaltation. 4-mana white enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Now, as far as being an uncommon, this card is pretty good in white, especially in a commander format where 21 damage is all we have to do with our commander. I would say this card is fantastic because it adds another strategy. If you're playing like a token deck and your commander is tiny, you could threaten commander damage in a deck that otherwise wouldn't entertain the idea. So giving yourself more ways to win in white I think is always nice. Other than that, I wouldn't just put it in a Voltron deck. The real value here is being able to threaten commander damage with a commander people probably wouldn't expect you to deal it with. Number 5 is Witching Well. Now, Throne of Eldraine had some pretty interesting artifact cards, and then you had some pretty decent value, like with Witching Well, 1 blue mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 2, and you can pay 4 mana, sacrifice it, and then draw 2 cards. Now, we've seen a lot of small artifacts, they enter the battlefield and they give you some kind of advantage. Pretty big reason why Arkham's Astroblade is now banned in Modern. Entering the battlefield and drawing you a card for just a 1 mana card is actually pretty good if you can recur it, blink it, do any of those things. It is just a scry 2, but scrying 2 is actually really good in Commander when you may have to top deck something after waiting a long time and it turns out to not be the card you want. So having this come back into play, if you can easily blink it or do any of those other things, scrying 2 is not bad at all. And you can of course sacrifice it to itself and draw yourself 2 cards. So for 5 mana total, if you're not happy with the top 2 cards, you can go another 2 deeper. Overall, not going to be super crazy, but it's a decent card that could help you out with your consistency. Usually it's these cheap artifacts that come into play and help you get your card draw set up. It's something that every deck needs. And next we have Scheming Symmetry. I've talked about this card plenty of times, but I still think that in July of 2020, it may be one of the most underrated cards in Commander. And I think it may be just paranoia, but there are so many people that are not willing to give an opponent a card from their deck, allowing them to do the same thing in tutor. For whatever reason, even if it's someone who's in a similar position in the game to you, where they're not really a threat. I just don't understand why certain people are reluctant to do that. It could really be the difference between you losing the game to someone who's just going off because you're allowing your other opponents to find their answers. And it's kind of funny too, because in Commander, it's not really symmetrical because you're just giving it to 2 players, right? And it doesn't even have to be you. You could just say 2 players, search their library, and get whatever card they want. If you know your deck doesn't have anything to stop the current problem on the board, get your other 2 opponents to help you out. Fantastic card for 1 black mana. It's ridiculous why this card is still pretty cheap. And then we have Dread Presence. Similar to Witching Well in the sense that it's not going to be crazy, but it gives you advantage. Gives you card advantage. You could deal damage if you want to and gain some life, but this is pretty much just a swamp landfall card. Obviously not something you want to play competitively. If you're just looking for solid mono black good stuff, I think Dread Presence is one of the better additions in the last couple years. It's not over the top like Kyrich or Yawgmoth where people are gonna freak out, but every time you have a swamp enter the battlefield, you draw a card, you lose a life. Pretty much what black does best is exchanging life for some sort of advantage in the game. And then we have Tectonic Reformation. 2 mana red enchantment, each land card in your hand has cycling 1 red, and the card itself has cycling for 2 generic mana. Cycling means you discard the card and then you draw a card, unless it's some specific form of cycling that allows you to search up, basic lands. This card is actually really good in red because red is usually terrible at just drawing cards. There's a lot of Wheel of Fortunes, there's a lot of stuff like that where we can just easily draw, but they're symmetrical and they allow your opponents to get some card draw too. The only other form of card draw that you have isn't even that consistent, and it forces you to usually discard, where you're technically just breaking even. With Tectonic Reformation, yes, you could be breaking even. With Tectonic Reformation, yes, you're breaking even by exchanging a card for a card and paying that red mana. But the card you're discarding is likely one of many lands you don't want to see ever again. And this is usually one of 2 problems you face in a Commander game. You either have too many lands or you have too few. Really awesome card, it is situational, but once you get to the point where you just have too many lands, you have a card here that allows you to ditch them for more cards. So put that mana to use and get something better. The next card is Rapacious Dragon. 5 mana red dragon, 3/3 flyer. Enters the battlefield, you create 2 treasure tokens. This might be the most underrated card in the whole video, because it does have some combo potential. It can assist combos at the very least. It enters and gives you mana. Well, it's nowhere near a Peregrine Drake. Anytime you have a creature that can just enter and give you mana, you're going to open yourself up for some kind of combo potential. Now, in my own personal experience using the Commander option, Gerard Weatherlight Hero, in addition to maybe other things like Phyrexian Altar, Ashnod's Altar, there are a lot of things you can do. Of course, trigger ETBs, bring creatures back and get those treasure tokens. It's nowhere near a Dockside Extortionist, but what you have here is 2 tokens, sack them for mana, something I think red is getting really good at now, just giving you extra advantage on ETB. And the final card here is Arcanists Owl. 4 mana, all hybrid, white-blue, a 3/3 flying artifact bird. When Arcanists Owl enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 of your library. You can reveal an artifact or enchantment from among those cards and you put it into your hand. The rest go to the bottom in a random order. Now this card is very similar to Fairy Mechanist. That card only really worked for artifacts though, and you could only look at the top 3. So the drawback here is that you have to pay 4 hybrid white-blue, and that's about it. Otherwise, it's pretty much a better card in every way. Cool thing about Throne of Eldraine was that you had some cards that interacted with artifacts and enchantments, cool little strategy that I would like to see maybe explored a little deeper. So anyway guys, let me know what you think of the video. Those were just 10 cards that I think are pretty cool, pretty underrated. I've played them all, I've enjoyed them all. You all have a good one. Void here signing off. See you all next video.